Close your eyes tonight, and know this: the last thing you entertain in imagination before sleep plants the seed of your tomorrow. What you dwell upon in that sacred drowsy state is not a fleeting thought. It is a command given to the unseen power within you. You see, man moves the world not by effort, but by assumption. Life must mirror what you dare to claim as true in the silence of your mind. The world is nothing more than your consciousness pushed out, and before sleep, your consciousness is most receptive, most pliable, most creative. This is why I say, guard this moment, for it is the gateway between the visible and the invisible. Do not fall asleep rehearsing fears or regrets. Do not close your eyes carrying the burden of doubt. Instead, clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Imagine as if it is already so. Feel the joy of the answered prayer. Let the tones of reality play so vividly in your imagination that when sleep takes over, your subconscious accepts it as fact. This practice is not idle fantasy, it is creation. For what you assume before sleep is impressed upon the deep mind, and from that depth arises the events, circumstances, and opportunities that shape your days. So tonight and every night, do it like this. See yourself as the one you long to be. Feel it natural, let it soak into your being, and drift into slumber clothed in that assumption. Persist in this act, and the world will bow to the conviction you sustained in the quiet of your own imagination. The last thought before sleep shapes tomorrow, because the mind, in its quiet and drowsy state, becomes most impressionable. What you allow to linger in imagination before drifting into unconsciousness is received by the deeper self, which knows no separation between fact and assumption. If you surrender to fear, doubt, or worry, that seed takes root and blossoms in tomorrow's experience. But if you fall asleep feeling the wish fulfilled, imagining yourself already in possession of your desire, your subconscious accepts it as truth and moves all things to align with that inner conviction. Shaping tomorrow from within, imagination before sleep is creation, not fantasy, because the state between wakefulness and rest is the doorway to the subconscious, and whatever you impress upon it in that sacred interval takes form in your outer world. When the body grows heavy and the mind drifts into that drowsy stillness, you are no longer bound by the rigid structures of logic or the limitations of the senses. In that condition, images and feelings sink deeper than casual thoughts of the day. They are accepted as fact, and the subconscious does not argue or question. It only obeys and expresses. To indulge in idle fears or regrets in this moment is to unconsciously create more of the same, for the law of consciousness cannot distinguish between what is wanted and what is feared. But if you choose deliberately, if you clothe yourself in the feeling of being already the one you wish to be, imagination ceases to be mere daydreaming and becomes the act of creation itself. The unseen reality impressed upon your mind at night is the blueprint from which tomorrow unfolds. So to practice assuming your desire fulfilled before sleep is to enter into partnership with the very power that shapes destiny. Life mirrors inner assumptions, not outer effort, because the outer world is nothing more than the reflection of the unseen convictions you carry within. The common belief is that toil, struggle, and endless striving produce results, yet history and experience show that effort without inner alignment is often wasted. A man may work tirelessly and still find himself frustrated, while another who inwardly assumes success walks with ease into the very opportunities others chase. This is because consciousness is the only reality, and the world you encounter is the echo of what you assume to be true of yourself. Your assumptions, whether deliberate or unconscious, set the stage upon which life plays its scenes. If inwardly you see yourself as lacking, unworthy, or bound by limitation, no amount of outer effort can permanently conceal that inner conviction, for sooner or later the world reflects it back to you. But when you dare to assume the state of already having, already being, already achieving what you desire, the external begins to conform without strain. Effort becomes directed, doors open, and circumstances rearrange themselves in harmony with the picture you hold within. This is why Neville insisted that assumption is the key, for assumption is faith in action. Outer effort may move pieces temporarily, but inner conviction moves the entire picture. To change life, you do not wrestle with appearances, you shift your assumption of self. Hold fast to the inner state of your wish fulfilled. Persist until it feels natural, and life has no choice but to mirror it. For it cannot betray the truth you sustain within. The subconscious accepts what you feel real in drowsiness, because in that delicate transition between wakefulness and sleep, the conscious mind relaxes its guard, and the deeper levels of the self open to suggestion without resistance. In the fully alert state, reason, doubt, and logic often interfere with imagination, questioning its reality and limiting its power. But as the body grows heavy and the senses turn inward, the conscious mind loses its grip, and in that drowsy stillness, the impressions you carry become living seeds planted into the fertile soil of the subconscious. It is not mere thought that takes root, but the feeling behind the thought. Words alone do little, but the emotional conviction, the vivid sensation of already being or having what you desire, is what the subconscious accepts as fact. The subconscious does not distinguish between imagination and physical reality. It only knows what you impress upon it with feeling. Therefore, to enter sleep rehearsing fears, failures, or worries is to command the subconscious to reproduce them, while to enter sleep clothed in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to hand over to the deeper mind the pattern of your desired life. This state of drowsiness is the golden moment where imagination becomes creation, for the conscious effort required is minimal and the suggestions penetrate without opposition. The subconscious, once impressed, sets in motion unseen currents, rearranging circumstances, attracting conditions, and compelling actions that lead to the manifestation of what was accepted as real. To deliberately choose your final thought and feeling before sleep is to take command of tomorrow. Night after night, if you persist in imagining and feeling yourself already in possession of your desire, the subconscious will faithfully reproduce that state, and the outer world will bend to the inner conviction you sustained in those precious moments of drowsy surrender. Replace fear with the joy of the wish fulfilled. For fear is nothing but misplaced imagination, while joy is imagination directed toward truth. Every image you hold in mind carries with it a corresponding emotion, and that emotion determines the vibration you impress upon the subconscious. When you dwell on fear, you are rehearsing in advance the very outcome you dread, planting seeds that must bring forth after their kind. Fear is the misuse of the creative power within, for it grants life and substance to what you do not desire. Yet the law of consciousness does not discriminate, it simply mirrors what you assume to be true. To live in fear is to continually reaffirm limitation, lack, and failure, keeping alive the very chains you long to escape. Yet the same energy that fuels fear can be transmuted into faith, for imagination does not change its nature, only its direction. If you can picture disaster vividly, you can just as easily picture fulfillment. The key is deliberate choice. To shift your inner gaze from the shadow of what could go wrong to the light of what is already yours in imagination. When you replace fear with the joy of the wish fulfilled, you consciously declare that the unseen is more real than appearances, and you align yourself with the truth that creation is finished. Joy in imagination is not idle fantasy, but a magnetic force that draws to you the corresponding outer experience. To feel joy before any evidence appears is to live from the end, and this inner celebration signals to the subconscious that the desire is already achieved. The subconscious accepts the feeling as fact and moves all things to reflect it. In this way, joy becomes the language through which you instruct the deeper self, while fear is the language through which you enslave it. Begin this practice tonight. When fear rises, do not fight it or resist it, for resistance only strengthens what you oppose. Instead, quietly redirect the inner movie. Replace the fearful image with a scene that implies your wish fulfilled. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the ease of already having what you desire. Let your heart dwell in the sweetness of that accomplishment until the joy grows stronger than the fear. With repetition, the habit of fear dissolves, and joy becomes the natural state you return to with ease. Every moment is a choice, and every choice plants a seed. Fear plants weeds, joy plants flowers. Choose deliberately, and soon your inner garden blossoms with the beauty of fulfilled desires. For life can only return to you what you consistently feel to be real. Enter sleep clothed in your desired state, for the moments before slumber are the most powerful for impressing the subconscious mind. As you drift between wakefulness and unconsciousness, your senses grow quiet, your body grows heavy, and the chatter of the outer world fades away. In that sacred silence, imagination rises to the forefront, and the images and feelings you carry with you become the blueprint of tomorrow. The subconscious does not argue, reason, or question in that drowsy interval. It simply accepts as true the reality you feel to be real, and then faithfully expresses it in the outer world. To enter sleep clothed in your desired state means to imagine and feel as if your wish were already fulfilled. Instead of replaying the troubles of the day, rehearsing conversations that stirred anger, or worrying about what tomorrow may bring, you deliberately choose a higher garment of consciousness. You put on success, love, abundance, or freedom in the same way you would put on a robe. You feel yourself already in possession of your goal. You imagine the scene that would naturally follow your desire's fulfillment, and you allow that feeling to become your final experience before the mind sinks into rest. This practice is no idle exercise, it is the very act of creation. What you accept in imagination, especially in the drowsy state before sleep, penetrates deeply into the subconscious, and from that depth springs the circumstances of your waking life. If you fall asleep dwelling on lack, you wake to lack. If you fall asleep clothed in fear, you wake to conditions that justify fear. But if you fall asleep in the joy of your wish fulfilled, you awaken to a world that mirrors joy. The law is unfailing, the inner assumption produces the outer reflection. The power lies not in effort, but in surrender. You do not need to force or strain to make it happen. You simply need to feel the naturalness of already being who you wish to be, and let that feeling carry you into sleep. The subconscious is most receptive when the conscious mind grows quiet, and that is why this interval is golden. You are impressing upon the infinite creative power within you, the pattern of your future, and that power never fails to express what is planted in it. To make this effective, keep your scenes simple. Imagine something short and vivid that implies your desire is already realized. It could be a congratulatory handshake, a loving embrace, or words of praise spoken to you. Do not clutter it with too much detail. Let it be clear, let it be natural, and most of all, let it be felt. The feeling is the secret, for the subconscious responds not to words, but to the emotional conviction behind them. Night after night, clothe yourself in the assumption of your fulfilled desire, and soon the garment becomes so natural that you forget it, it is assumed. At that point, the world must conform, for life can never betray the truth of what you have faithfully sustained within. By entering sleep clothed in your desired state, you step beyond wishing and step into being, and the unseen currents of creation move silently to shape your world in harmony with your inner conviction. What you impress at night expresses by day, because the final thoughts and feelings you carry into sleep are planted in the fertile ground of the subconscious mind, and the subconscious always brings forth what has been impressed upon it. In the waking state, the conscious mind is active, filled with reason, doubt, analysis, and resistance. But in the stillness of night, as the body relaxes and the senses fade, that conscious interference grows weak, and the subconscious becomes open and receptive. It does not question whether what you imagine is fact or fiction. It accepts whatever you feel to be real, and from that acceptance, it sets in motion events, circumstances, and encounters that mirror the inner seed. To impress something upon the subconscious is not to repeat empty words, but to enter into the feeling of already having your desire. The subconscious speaks in the language of emotion and imagery, not logic or explanation. That is why the last thing you allow yourself to feel before sleep is of supreme importance. If you lie in bed rehearsing fears, resentments, or disappointments, you are handing over to your subconscious the pattern of what must reappear in your waking life. You awaken to a world that justifies the very mood you surrendered to the night before. But if instead you choose deliberately to enter the joy of the wish fulfilled, imagining a simple scene that implies success, love, health, or freedom, you impress upon the subconscious a higher pattern, and by the law of consciousness, that pattern must express itself by day. Consider how natural it feels to drift into sleep with the burden of worry. That heaviness often returns in the morning, creating the tone of the day. The law is precise. The feeling you carry into unconsciousness is the state you awaken into. To change your days, you must first change your nights. This does not mean long hours of effort, but rather a few quiet minutes of focused imagination before you surrender to sleep. You picture yourself already in possession of your desire. You hear the words that would be spoken to you if it were true. You feel the relief, the gratitude, the joy of fulfillment, and you let that mood wrap itself around you as a garment. You fall asleep in it, and the subconscious, which never slumbers, works throughout the night to express it. What you impress at night expresses by day, because the subconscious is the builder of form, the silent power that takes direction from your dominant assumption. Night is the workshop where tomorrow is shaped. Many unknowingly misuse this power, allowing their last thoughts to be of defeat or anxiety, and then they wonder why life presents the same conditions over and over. But those who understand the law know that the night is the most sacred time, for in it you hand the blueprint of your future to the unseen creative force. You may not see immediate change with the eyes, but persistence in this practice alters the course of your days until the outer inevitably conforms. This is why Neville taught that sleep is the gateway to creation. The state akin to sleep, whether before bed or in moments of deep relaxation, is the channel through which your assumptions flow into the subconscious. Every morning you awaken, you step into the harvest of what you planted the night before. This is why you must guard the inner garden. Sow only what you wish to reap. Do not let the weeds of fear or doubt take root in those final minutes of awareness. Instead, water the soil with visions of your ideal life and let the sweetness of fulfillment carry you into slumber. When you understand this law and apply it faithfully, you realize that life is not happening to you by chance, but is continually responding to the impressions you make. Night is the time of sowing, day is the time of reaping. The two are inseparable. By mastering the art of impressing your subconscious with your chosen desires at night, you hold the key to transforming the conditions of your day. For what you impress at night expresses by day and cannot fail to appear in the outer world. Guard your mind's final moments before slumber, for they hold more creative power than all the frantic effort of your waking hours. The state of consciousness you carry into sleep determines the experiences you will meet upon waking, because the subconscious accepts, without question, the final impression given to it and reproduces it faithfully. To neglect this sacred time is to leave the direction of your life to chance, allowing worry, fear, or idle distraction to dictate the blueprint of tomorrow. But to guard it is to become a deliberate creator, one who uses the last moments of awareness to shape destiny with precision. In the hours of the day, your conscious mind is active, reasoning, doubting, comparing, and often struggling with appearances. Yet as night approaches and drowsiness sets in, that surface activity grows weaker, and the subconscious, the silent builder of your reality, stands open and receptive. It does not argue with you. It does not distinguish between what is imagined and what is physically present. It accepts whatever you feel to be real and gives it form. This is why the last thought, the last image, the last emotion you entertain before sleep is of such profound importance. It is not a fleeting idea. It is the seed that takes root in the fertile soil of the subconscious and grows into the circumstances of your life. To guard your mind in these moments means to take command of what you dwell upon. Many people lie down at night and allow the mind to replay the day's troubles, relive arguments, or anticipate difficulties. They fall asleep rehearsing failure, and the subconscious accepts this mood as instruction. The following day, life seems to bring more of the same, confirming the very fears that were impressed upon the mind. This cycle continues until one learns the simple but powerful truth. What you permit in imagination before slumber becomes the reality you meet when you awaken. Guarding your mind does not require strain. It requires awareness and deliberate choice. Instead of surrendering to the pull of negative reflection, you gently turn your attention to the state you desire. You imagine not the problem but its solution, not the lack but the fulfillment, not the fear but the joy of accomplishment. You clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, allowing it to settle over you like a garment until it feels natural. You hear the words that would be spoken if your desire were realized. You see the scene that would follow the attainment of your goal. You feel the relief, the gratitude, the confidence, and you let that feeling carry you into unconsciousness. This practice is not idle fantasy. It is the law of consciousness in action. The subconscious mind, being the storehouse of creation, does not create independently. It accepts impressions from the conscious mind and expresses them. At no time is it more open to impression than in the drowsy interval before sleep. To waste this moment is to waste the most fertile ground of creation. To guard it is to plant deliberately and wisely, knowing that what you sow you must also reap. Guarding your mind's final moments means treating them as sacred. It means refusing to indulge in idle fear or resentment, even if the events of the day tempted you to do so. It means recognizing that you are always greater than circumstances, for circumstances are only the reflection of past assumptions. The power is always in the present assumption, and the most powerful assumption is the one you take into the silence of sleep. As you make this practice a habit, you will discover that life begins to change with an ease that effort alone could never achieve. Opportunities arise, relationships transform, conditions shift, and doors open, not because you forced them without a struggle, but because you impressed upon the subconscious the conviction that they were already yours. The outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself in harmony with the seed planted within. Guard your mind's final moments before slumber as the watchman of a great treasure, for in truth, that is what they are. Every night you are given the power to direct the unseen forces of creation. You decide whether to hand them fear or faith, doubt or confidence, lack or abundance. Whatever you choose, the subconscious will accept and the world will reflect it. To master this moment is to master the art of creation itself, for each day's harvest is born from the seed planted in the stillness of the night before. Persist in nightly assumption until it feels natural, for the subconscious does not respond to empty repetition, but to the conviction of feeling. When you lie down at night and deliberately assume the state of your wish fulfilled, you are impressing the unseen depths of your being with the reality of that desire. At first, it may feel like imagination, like play acting, like something distant and unreal, but persistence transforms imagination into conviction, and conviction is the language the subconscious understands. Night after night, as you enter the drowsy state and assume your desire fulfilled, the sense of naturalness grows stronger until what once felt like pretending becomes your inner truth. The reason persistence is necessary is because the mind has been trained by past beliefs and experiences to accept a certain identity. If for years you have thought of yourself as limited, struggling, or unworthy, that assumption has become natural, and it feels true even if you dislike it. To replace it, you cannot merely say a new word once or imagine a new picture for a few minutes. You must persistently impress the new assumption until it displaces the old. Just as a new habit replaces an old one through repetition, so a new inner state replaces the former by the continual act of assumption. Night is the most powerful time for this practice because the conscious mind grows quiet, the body relaxes, and the subconscious stands open to impression. What you feel as real in that drowsy interval is carried deep within and reproduced in your outer life. This is why Neville urged his students to persist nightly, to never go to sleep without entering the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Even if the day's appearances contradict your desire, even if circumstances seem hostile to its fulfillment, you set aside the outer evidence and turn inward. You take upon yourself the new garment of consciousness, and you persist in wearing it until it no longer feels like effort but like your natural identity. The shift is subtle yet powerful. At first, the mind whispers that it is only imagination, that nothing has changed, that you are only pretending. But if you persist, something happens. The feeling grows warmer, richer, more convincing. The scene you imagine before sleep begins to carry a sense of reality, as though it is happening now. You feel the tones of reality in the congratulatory handshake, the loving embrace, the words of praise, or the quiet sense of accomplishment. The more natural it feels, the more firmly it is impressed upon the subconscious, and the more inevitable its expression in the world of form. Persistence is not a matter of straining but of consistency. You do not need to fight, argue, or force the feeling. You simply return to it night after night, like watering a seed planted in the soil. You do not dig up the seed each morning to check its progress. You trust that what has been sown will grow, and your task is only to keep nurturing it with assumption until it becomes second nature. In the same way, you persist in nightly assumption, knowing that the unseen currents of life are rearranging themselves to match the conviction you sustain within. The secret is in naturalness. Once a thing feels natural, the subconscious accepts it without effort. The outer world then conforms automatically, for life mirrors the inner state. Think of how natural it feels to wake up in your own home, to respond to your own name, to move about in your own body. You do not question these realities. They are simply accepted. When the assumption of your desire reaches that level of naturalness, when you feel at home in the new state, the manifestation is certain. Outer appearances cannot resist the power of a conviction that has become natural within. To persist until it feels natural requires faith, for appearances will often suggest the opposite. Yet faith is not blind, it is the certainty that what is felt within will be seen without. Faith is persistence in assumption despite delay. Every night, no matter what the day has brought, you return to the end. You close your eyes, you quiet the mind, and you step into the reality of your wish fulfilled. You live it inwardly before it has yet appeared outwardly, and in doing so, you compel life to conform. Many abandon this practice too soon, imagining that because change has not yet appeared, nothing is happening. Yet the seed does not sprout the moment it is planted. It must take root, it must grow in silence, it must follow its appointed process. The subconscious works in the same way. What you impress at night does not always show itself immediately, but it is working, reshaping unseen currents, altering attitudes, drawing circumstances together, preparing the stage. The manifestation comes when the assumption has become natural, and not before. Persist in nightly assumption until it feels natural, and you will discover that your world bends to your conviction. What once seemed distant becomes inevitable, for life can only express what is believed within. This is the great secret. You do not wait for proof to assume. You assume until proof appears. The world does not dictate to you, it reflects you. Night after night, assume the end, feel it real, and persist until that feeling of naturalness settles in your being. For in that moment, creation is complete, and the outer world must follow. The world reflects the conviction planted before sleep, because the final state of consciousness you carry into slumber is not lost. It is impressed upon the subconscious mind, which is the silent power that shapes your waking experience. Every event you encounter, every circumstance that greets you, and every condition that appears in your day is the outpicturing of assumptions you have accepted as true. And nothing imprints more deeply upon the subconscious than the mood and conviction you surrender to before drifting into unconsciousness. This is why Neville Goddard insisted that man must guard the doorway of sleep as the most sacred moment of creation, for in it lies the seed of tomorrow. During waking hours, the conscious mind is active, questioning, reasoning, and often doubting. It looks at appearances and declares them real, even when they contradict your desire. But in the interval between wakefulness and sleep, this surface activity grows quiet. The senses fade, the body grows heavy, and imagination rises to the forefront. In this state, the subconscious no longer resists or argues. It simply accepts what you feel as real. That acceptance is creation, for the subconscious is the builder of form, and the world you awaken to is nothing more than its faithful expression. To plant conviction before sleep means to deliberately choose the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and to clothe yourself in it as though it were already true. It is not mere words or idle repetition that impress the subconscious, but the emotional certainty that what you imagine is real. If you fall asleep rehearsing fears, dwelling on worries, or reliving disappointments, the subconscious accepts these states as facts and reproduces them in your outer world. The following day, life mirrors back to you the very mood you carried into slumber, and thus the cycle of fear and frustration continues. But if you consciously replace fear with faith, lack with fulfillment, and doubt with joy, the subconscious receives a new instruction, and the outer world must bend to reflect it. Consider the subtlety of this law. The subconscious does not discriminate between good and bad, desirable and undesirable. It does not choose on your behalf. It only accepts what you impress upon it with feeling and expresses it without fail. That is why conviction is so important. You cannot plant a weak, hesitant thought and expect it to flourish into a mighty harvest. You must plant with certainty, with the deep inner knowing that it is already accomplished. Conviction is not effort or strain. It is the quiet assurance that what you assume is true. When you carry this conviction into the state of sleep, you hand it over to the creative power within, and that power sets all things in motion to make it visible. This explains why so many live in cycles of repetition. They fall asleep each night carrying the weight of the day's failures, the echo of fearful conversations, or the image of what they dread tomorrow may bring. Unaware of the law, they think these are harmless thoughts, but the subconscious accepts them as instructions and faithfully reproduces them. Life then seems to confirm their fears, and they believe themselves victims of circumstance, not realizing they are creators of it. The truth is simple yet profound. The world is a mirror, and it reflects not what you wish for lightly, but what you believe deeply, and that belief is most powerfully planted before sleep. To apply this law, you need not struggle. You need only choose deliberately. Each night, as you prepare for sleep, take a few moments to quiet the mind and imagine a scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. Keep it simple. Do not clutter it with detail. Choose a moment that would naturally follow the realization of your dream. A friend congratulating you, a loved one embracing you, a letter of acceptance in your hand. The quiet joy of relief. Enter into that scene with feeling. Hear the words, see the gestures, and most importantly, feel the reality of it. Let that feeling grow until it becomes the mood you carry as you drift into unconsciousness. At first, it may feel like imagination, like play acting. The mind may whisper that it is not real, yet persistence transforms the unreal into the real. Each night, as you return to the scene, the conviction deepens. The subconscious begins to accept it, and what is accepted inwardly cannot remain hidden. It must externalize itself in the world of form. You may not know how or when it will appear, but that is not your concern. The subconscious is infinite in its wisdom, and it will arrange circumstances, guide actions, and open doors you could never have conceived. Your only task is to plant conviction before sleep and trust the unseen power to express it. This law also reveals why effort alone so often fails. A man may work tirelessly in the outer world, but if inwardly he carries the assumption of failure, no amount of effort can permanently override that conviction. Life will eventually mirror the inner state. Conversely, another may appear to move with ease, yet his world blossoms with opportunity, because his inner conviction is aligned with success. Outer action flows naturally from inner assumption, but it is always the assumption that governs. And the most powerful assumption is the one planted before sleep, for it is in that state that the subconscious is most open to impression. Guard, therefore, the final moments of your day as the most sacred. Do not surrender them to idle thought, to worry, or to regret. Use them deliberately as the craftsman uses his tools. Clothe yourself in the feeling of being already who you wish to be. Fall asleep in the joy of the wish fulfilled. Carry into unconsciousness the conviction that it is already done. For the world does not betray the seed planted in the depths, it must bring it forth. The world reflects the conviction planted before sleep because life is consciousness expressed. You are always impressing the subconscious, whether deliberately or unconsciously, and it always returns to you what has been given. By making the nightly practice of assumption your habit, you take control of this process. You cease to be a victim of random impressions and become the master of your own destiny. Each night becomes an act of creation. Each morning the harvest of what was sown. Persist until conviction feels natural, until the assumption of your desire becomes your unquestioned truth, and the world will bow to that truth, for it can do nothing else.